BACKTO60 has gone from ground zero to leading Michael Mansfield's regiment of 50s women with the legal challenge, and we've had women from all the groups sending us messages absolutely thrilled and delighted that we are where we are.
I think the last 12 months of BACKTO60 have achieved so much, and the women are seeing it as a really positive thing. Their voices are well and truly being heard in a way that they haven't been heard before.
For me, it's a manifestation of the unequal power differential between men and women that continues, especially for a group of women who were born in the 50s who did not have the equality legislations that we have nowadays. So that needs to be remedied.
BACKTO60 have highlighted the issue about unfairness to women born in the 1950s, and that awareness has grown and grown over the year, and we are making an impact on government, and let's hope it's a positive one.
It's a big day for BACKTO60. Everyone thought they'd never get a judicial review, and I'm afraid it's happening now, and there's going to be consequences.
There's a group of women, most of them standing over there, but they represent a much bigger group, 3.8 million women who are challenging government policy. Government policy which has increased state pension age for this particular group born in the 1950s and have created a serious disadvantage, and we're arguing discrimination. That's as much as I can say. How it's gone and how it's going to go, I leave to others.
Over the last year or so, there have been several landmarks, notably, of course, in November when we had, when the BACKTO60 campaign had the judicial review hearing, and whether they could have a substantive hearing today on the 6th of June. So that was a huge landmark and a great win, and Justice Lang did a fantastic job in her judgment.
It was a lot of hard work, because we knew that given the correspondence that we were going to have to raise money to get into court, and that was a huge concern because of the financial strains that 50s women were under. Nonetheless, we thought, well, if they give us 50p each, we're done. So we waited, went through the correct legal steps, and then decided, okay, right, it's time to go. We crowdfunded, and I think all the women were in shock, because they thought, they're actually going to do this. Wow, because they've been waiting so long for a legal challenge to be mounted. And it was on fire, the crowdfund. We were really heartened by it. And some women were saying, look, I can't afford to support you, but I'm right behind you. I said, well, don't worry, we're going to put 50p, put nothing. Then, you know, people were putting £500 in, and, you know, it was like, whoa, it was just so encouraging.
Well, the big thing a year ago, when there was the application for a judicial review, the detractors, the opponents of all these women said, no way, it'll just be laughed out of court, you won't get anywhere. Instead of that, the judge actually not only agreed that there should be a judicial review, but actually took all the points that Michael Mansfield made over sexual, age discrimination, failure to tell people, and said the whole lot would have to be considered a year ago. And that was a major milestone, and it shocked the people who were the detractors and the private pensions industry and the right-wing Tories who hate them giving them any money anyway. They were really shocked.
In the last 12 months, there have been lots of landmarks, particularly at the UN, particularly with the unions coming on board with Unison. We've got built up our base, we've got the Fawcett Society on board, we've got Amnesty International supporting us, we've got a large number of parliamentarians supporting us and prepared to put an early day motion through as well. So the support has grown and grown and grown. And I was here in November last year when permission was not just granted, but every single one of the points we made were accepted by the judge, the Right Honourable Justice Lang, and every single point that the government put forward was dismissed as irrelevant.
And then the second amazing development that followed really was Jackie Jones, who's now a Labour MEP for Wales, came up with the convention, CEDAW as it's called, which is the UN Convention Against Discrimination for Women over issues. And one of the most amazing facts, which puts the government in a bit of difficulty and the DWP tried to dismiss today, was, in 1986, that's 10 years before the Act came in, Margaret Thatcher, obviously as Britain's first wine woman, thought, yes, we'll sign this convention. What she has done, though, is created a situation that the cuts that she and John Major sort of introduced this thing, can now be properly challenged. And I think that is a major thing. It came up in the case, and the DWP tried to say, oh no, you're very restricted, judges, you can only vaguely interpret it, you can't accept this thing. I mean, that's what I mean, actually, what has happened actually following these two things is how hardline the ministry has got. And I think that is possibly a mistake.
Well, in the brief that I wrote and the updated brief that I wrote for the judicial review hearing that has been taking place yesterday and today, we outlined how international law, the CEDAW, has been breached in several respects with regard to the pensions and the way the taper, the mechanism, was used by the government. It's a voluntary scheme that they use in order to actually disadvantage women, not advantage women. Now, it's not an argument about whether we should have the same pension age. That's not the argument. It's about the way it was done and the impact, the negative, dire impact on this group of women in particular.
Most recently, we met with MPs at the Houses of Parliament in the Jubilee Room. That was led by Anna McMorran MP, who raised a early day motion, and within the early day motion there's a temporary special measure, which is a highly technical legal document, but it's actually a vehicle. So when our claim is granted, we use that vehicle to go through Parliament to secure back our earned dues, and we've already established that route.
CEDAW says any disadvantage to women, historic as well as cumulative, needs to be remedied by the government. And one way of doing that is to pass a temporary special measure which allows for restitution for the women who have lost all that money.
And here we are today, the second day of the judicial review, which is going really well. There's a tremendous buzz about the place. These women are so excited because they feel like they're speaking individually, but they're speaking through one voice, and it's having the most amazing impact. So it's a fantastic day.
The Department of Work and Pensions today has actually tried to demolish their entire argument. Their arguments about sexual gender discrimination, age discrimination. They've said the European Union has no say in this. They've either excluded it or it's not covered. And the BACKTO60 lawyers have come back very strongly and said, no, there still is discrimination. And yes, these people were not notified, and it's a matter of fairness. And there was a very moving scene right at the end when Michael Mansfield raised the sad cases of people who were driven complete ruin by this policy. And the interesting thing was, one of the judges said, oh no, that's a very sad story. So in other words, they've read some of these women's plight, and I actually will be amazed if they don't try and find a way to basically come to a decision in their favour.
The main reason that I'm involved in this campaign at all is because the BACKTO60 campaign approached me in relation to the charity that I co-run with Michael Mansfield called SOS Silence of Suicide, because there were huge concerns about the psychological well-being of these ladies. They were traumatised, they were suffering on a daily basis, they didn't know how to exist, some of them just couldn't exist. And we've had harrowing stories of self-harm, thoughts of suicide, on a regular basis. So that's how we first got involved, and we'll be here regardless of the decision in the judicial review. SOS will remain here to support those women, whatever they need and whenever they need us.
You've seen the women here today. They can really, it's a lot for them to find the money to get here. But they wanted to be here and they've done a sterling job. They were singing this morning, "You'll Never Walk Alone," and I tell you, it really touched my heart because I know what that song means to them and I know what it means to me.
So what this judicial review has also done, it has improved the mental well-being of all these ladies and in fact their families as well. Because before, where there was no hope and they had no voice, now they've got these things and it has really raised them. They are feeling much better, they are empowered and they feel they can stand up and speak and they can fight. And that is a huge boost to their psychological well-being.
I would encourage other people who are experiencing such injustices to actually think, I don't have to sit in the chair and watch television and be told, get on with this. I can actually do something about it. And that's what we need to do. We need to challenge those who are making these decisions that we find unacceptable.
I hope that by the end of this judicial review, women not only get the recognition they deserve for what they've suffered, in terms of financial suffering, psychological suffering, and general day-to-day suffering, but that the decision goes in the way it should. There can be no doubt that these women are owed their pensions. There can be no doubt that they were given very little or no notice. In fact, there are papers that Michael Mansfield read out in court yesterday where the government was fully aware that the message was not reaching these women, that they were not all aware that their pensions were being deferred by up to 6 years. So we want a full acknowledgement of that.
In my view, today was characterised by the Department of Work and Pensions lawyers actually saying not only did the 3.8 million people have no right to be told what was going to happen to their pensions, but they have no legal remedy. They can just get stuffed. And what has happened is the two judges have said, well, no, we're going to go away and think about this and come to a considered opinion.
Well, I think the judges are brilliant. I think they're taking it all on board. I think they would have due consideration of all the points that I've made. And right at this moment, I am very hopeful.
They're on the ropes. And our legal team has put them on the ropes, and I'm so proud of them, and so are all the 50s women. And it's all 50s women. We are back to 60, but it's for all 50s women.
And it's just demoralising, and it's about society as a whole. Are we saying that we really don't care about our women and our mothers and whatever? It's about society just picking up and saying, no, this isn't the way to treat people.
We are praying, and we deserve, and we declare that our claim will be granted, and off we will go on the route I explained with all these amazing cross-party MPs, including Tory MPs, and they are not, the latest intake of MPs. These are powerful MPs who are behind us.
I wish them the best of luck, because actually they're not just fighting for themselves, they're fighting for future generations as well, that no government should ever bring in legislation like this without actually doing a proper impact assessment to see how this policy will affect real people.
If I were an MP, I think, okay, I can't stand by this any longer and watch this. I am going to do something. And a friend of mine said to me, Joanne, if they're right honourable members, then they must do the honourable thing, and I think she's right.
We're hoping the outcome will be a positive one for the 50s women, that the judges will rule in our favour, and that we will get the full restitution that they so rightly deserve.
What I want from the outcome is that our claim is granted and that we can move forward on this for the lives of those 3.8 million women who've been disadvantaged because of the way the government has gone about this so-called equalisation by discriminating against the women.
the day, what we're fighting for is for these women to have the money that they were entitled to and to have it as soon as possible. It's what they deserve.
Justice will prevail. We're in the right.
You represent people like that who feel strongly and are prepared to take action. And I think that's what our society needs, are involved citizens that are saying we're not going to put up with it. So it's great.